What's up guys, Lon here from Android Authority, and today we're taking a second look at the Nexus 6P. We've already reviewed this device, which was very nicely done by Josh, but it never hurts to have a second opinion. So let's go ahead and get into my personal thoughts and opinions on the Nexus 6P. So I'm going to try to keep this as short and sweet as I possibly can and not get too in depth with all the super technical stuff. But if you want to know everything you could possibly want to know about the Nexus 6P, make sure to check out the full review. Also keep in mind that many of the things that I said about the Nexus 5X in my 5X review will also be echoed here with the Nexus 6P simply because there are certain things that they have in common. With that being said, I've been a huge fan of the Nexus line for a very long time, and I've owned every single Nexus phone since the Galaxy Nexus. I have to say that the 6P is easily the best Nexus phone Google has ever released, and it's made by Huawei, a company I never anticipated to make a Nexus device. It all starts with the build. The all-metal unibody design is absolutely fantastic. It feels solid in the hand, and even though the body is made entirely of metal, it doesn't have that slippery feel that some other metal phones do because the sides are flat with chamfered edges, which really helps with the grip. It is a pretty tall phone, and it's actually slightly taller than last year's Nexus 6, but it's nowhere near as wide, which makes the 6P a lot easier for me to wrap my hands around, and it's generally a more manageable one-handed experience. I also really like the visor on the back that houses the camera and flash. It's one of those things that looks a lot better in person than it does in renders and photos. It doesn't protrude as much as you might initially think, and overall it gives the 6P a unique look from what would otherwise be a pretty standard smartphone design. The screen, as you may already know, is a 5.7-inch AMOLED display with Quad HD resolution, and it's a very gorgeous looking panel. I personally prefer AMOLED displays mainly due to the deeper blacks, vibrant colors, and high contrast ratios, so I'm glad they stuck with it for the 6P, and I've always felt that AMOLED screens suited Nexus phones a lot better as it blends in extremely well with the clean black front. It's very bright, very vivid, and it's great for playing games and watching YouTube, which I tend to do quite a bit on my mobile devices. I know not everyone is a fan of larger screen sizes on smartphones, but for me it's a perfect fit for the way I use my devices. Performance has been really good as well. It's got a Snapdragon 810 with 3 gigs of RAM, and the 6P just flies through everything. It doesn't matter what I throw at it, this phone never lags or stutters. It's extremely responsive and smooth from general everyday tasks to gaming, multitasking, and video watching. It is by far the most fluid experience I've ever had on an Android device, and of course the fact that it runs a pure vanilla Android experience with no additional bloatware or skin to bog things down certainly makes a huge difference. One of my favorite features on the Nexus 6P has to be the front-facing speakers. They really top off the media experience. They're extremely loud, the sound quality is fantastic, and they can definitely give something like HTC's Boom Sound a run for its money. I'm a huge fan of front-facing speakers on smartphones, and it still boggles my mind why more flagship devices don't have this, but I'm glad this is something the 6P carried over from last year's Nexus 6. New to the Nexus line this year is the addition of a fingerprint reader on the back, and it didn't really surprise me too much considering I already had prior experience with Nexus Imprint on the 5X. It's just as fast and accurate as it was on the 5X, and even though you can't unlock your phone when it's sitting on a desk, I'm still generally a fan of the rear placement. Your finger just naturally gravitates to that point on the phone, and you can have your phone out of your pocket and unlocked before it even reaches your face. Battery life is pretty much all day, every day. It's only on days when I heavily game on it that I'm able to kill it before the day is over, but otherwise it gets me through a full day with no problems. On those days where I'm using the 6P a lot heavier than normal, I can just plug it in for about 15 to 30 minutes and get some decent battery life back into it thanks to the built-in fast charging. The 6P and the 5X share the same exact camera sensor and image processing, and if you saw my 5X review, then you know exactly how I feel about this camera. It's a really great camera, and with so many smartphones that came out this year with awesome cameras, Google really couldn't have picked a better time to finally get the camera right. It takes excellent photos in virtually every lighting condition, including low light. It would have been nice to have OIS not only for low light purposes, but also for more stable footage when recording video, but the larger pixel size definitely more than makes up for the lack of OIS when it comes to low light or nighttime shots. One of the biggest reasons why I've always been a huge fan of Nexus devices is because of the software, and there's not really much I can probably say here that you don't already know, but the 6P is running Google's latest Android Marshmallow, and it is by far the best version of Android yet. I'm not just saying that because it's the newest version of Android out there either. Marshmallow feels extremely polished, mostly because that's what this update was about. Lollipop was great for the material design, but it had a lot of problems, and Marshmallow fixed all of that. Among many other things, you've got Doze for better battery life in standby, user-defined app permissions, contextual search results with Now on Tap, and revamped volume controls, which were more or less broken on Lollipop. This isn't to say that Marshmallow is perfect or anything, because features like Now on Tap still need a lot of work, as it can be rather inconsistent at times, but in the grand scheme of things, this was a much-needed update to improve the user experience. So overall, I love the Nexus 6P, and Google definitely hit it out of the ballpark this year. I would recommend this phone to anyone who is a fan of the Nexus line or just a fan of Android in general. Google and Huawei built a phone that can finally compete with the best Android flagships out there because unlike previous Nexus phones, no corners were cut this year. If you want the best Android experience like Google has to offer, check out the Nexus 6P, and I think you'll be plenty happy if you do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below. We definitely appreciate it. And also subscribe to the channel, which is also down below if you haven't already. And if you want to see more here from us at Android Authority, make sure to check out the links on the side. And also check out the website as well for more in-depth coverage because we are your source for all things Android.